Hello all, welcome to online SAP ABAP training, and today we are going to see data dictionary, which is central repository of SAP.
In today's session, we are going to see how to store data in SAP. SAP is a software solution which handles the business data. So in SAP somewhere you are storing the data. In SAP, whatever you do, for example, maybe you create a sales order, you create a purchase order, or maybe when you are doing some invoice, whatever the activities you are doing, all the data go and stores in tables, in the form of tables. SAP is a package. By default, when you purchase the license of SAP, there are some set of tables already available. There are some set of programs or transactions which are already available. Something like when you purchase a new mobile, some mobile apps will be already available in the same way. When you purchase the license of SAP, some programs already available and some tables already available. So today what we'll do is, how can we see the existing tables which is already available in SAP, which are storing the data? How can we create the new tables? For example, I want to store my own business data. The SAP has not given a particular table to store those details. So how can I do that? So those things we'll see. So launch your SAP. This is SAP logon icon. So click on this and try to launch the SAP logon pad. Log into your server. So provide your user ID and password, and then you are able to log into the server. So generally in SAP, everything like whatever you want to do, you have to do it via transaction. For example, if you want to create a program, we have already seen there is a transaction called SE38 to create a program. Similarly, if you want to display the table, or if you want to create a table where the data is getting stored, the transaction is AC11. You have to remember this transaction. The transaction is AC11. If you want to see, if you want to look into a table where the data is getting stored, let us go to AC11 transaction. So AC11 transaction looks like this, and here you can see the already existing tables which were given by SAP. You can also create your own tables where you can store your own business details. For example, SAP has given some tables like this, MAKT. This is a standard SAP table which comes by default. No need to create, SAP has already given this table. So now if you click on a display, so if you have given a name here, if you click on a display, you can see the various fields. So the screen, whatever you are looking here, this is called table structure. The first screen, whatever you look, this is called table structure. And here, if I click on this icon and click on execute, whatever you are looking here, this is called table data. So SAP is storing some data. So what data it is storing? It is storing data something like this. Now we will try to understand what exactly happening here. I told you in SAP business process, everything will be done via tables and transactions. Just now we saw one transaction, S11. S11 is a transaction to create a table. Similarly, SE38 is a transaction to create a program. Similarly, to do the business process, say for example, tomorrow If you are creating a material, so SAP has a transaction called MM01 to create a material. Tomorrow you are creating a sales order, then SAP has a transaction to create VA01 transaction to create a sales order, and so on. So when you create a material, you will provide some details. My material number is so and so. My material description is, for example, some um, microprocessor. That is my material number. Material type is a finished product, or so on. So you will give some inputs while creating a material. So all those details will go and store in tables. So I have already some list of important transactions and tables here, which we will use frequently as a technical consultants. Generally, what are all the transactions we will use, and what are all the tables we have to look in, what are all the standard tables we have to look in. If you can see here, S11, this is called a DDIC. DDIC stands for Data Dictionary, which is a central repository. Here, whatever the data is stored in SAP, you can look in. Similarly, SE38, this is to write programming. SE80 is to object navigator, and so on. There are some list of transactions. So by end of finishing this course, we will cover up almost all these transactions and more than these transactions. So as I already told you, no need to by heart or no need to mug up these transactions. Daily we will handle one or two transactions, just like today we are handling S11. So you can remember automatically by finishing this course, you can remember it, no need to by heart. Similarly, there are some important functional transactions here and tables. For example, to create material, the functional consultants will go into this transaction MM01. Here they will create a material. Here, this transaction, they can change the material. For example, tomorrow one material description is a little bit changed. You will create in this transaction, you will change in this transaction. This is only for display. So when you create a material, all the material details will be getting stored in these tables. These are all SAP standard tables which SAP has already provided to you. Similarly, when we create a customer in SAP, this is the tables. These are the tables in which the data is getting stored. Then vendor, then purchase order, like that. Every business process in SAP has different transactions and different tables. But again, I will not suggest you to remember or by heart this. Maybe by end of this course, again we will handle most of the tables and so on, so you can remember them without any problem. Now what we are going to do is, I'm going back here. So this is the creation of a sales order, for example. If I provide some details over here and click on save, my sales order will be created and that details will be stored in the respective table. So sales order will be stored in which table? If you want to see, here you can see the sales order. We are in VA01 transaction. The sales order related data is always stored in these tables. Okay, so this is just a reference. Tomorrow when you are working in real time, so sometimes your functional consultant will come and say, while creating the sales order, I have some problem. Then you should have at least some idea where the data is going and storing. So after this class, I will forward this Excel to you so that you can just use for your reference later. So coming back to our table. So what I already told you, if you want to look into the existing table or if you want to create a new table, always go to the transaction SC11. Here you have something called MAKT. MAKT is storing material descriptions. For example, when you create a material, you will provide some description in transaction. That material description, this table will store. When I click on a display, the very initial screen, whatever you are looking, this is a table structure. You can see this table will store the material descriptions, and it has some fields. If you see this here, this table has some fields. What fields it has? It can store some client. You can see the description over here. This is first field, which is a client. Second field is a material number. Third field is a language. Then material description and so on. So every table is a combination of different fields. This MAKT table consists of 5 fields. Now what I'll do, I'll click on this contents to see what exactly the data which it has stored. So now I will execute this. So now if you see, for example, material number 38, this material, somebody has created material whose number is 38. 38 means classification test. In German language, you can see a different description. In English, you can see a different description. In Japanese, you can see a different description, and so on. So if you don't want to see all the materials, if you want to see material number 38 alone, give here material number 38 and execute. So only the material number 38 alone is coming up with all the languages. Okay, so D stands for German and E stands for English, F stands for French. In French language, this is how the description will appear. Okay, in Russian language, this is how the description will appear. Already this material has been created in different languages, so you have all this data here. So technically speaking, now what I say is, any table, a table is a combination of table structure and table data. Table structure means the very initial screen which you are looking in. Table data means what content it stores. So if it is storing a material, means what is the material number it is storing? Material 38 or 42? What is the material number? Material description the table will store means what exactly is the material description. So any table contains two things: table structure and table data. Table structure is combination of different fields. Combination of different fields. What is the field exactly? The field means what it is storing. What are all the fields it can store? Table data, it's nothing but actual business data. Stored in a table. Now assume somebody came to you and they asked, can you create a table? Can you create a small table to store employee details in my company? So assume I have a company and several employees, some 500 employees are there working in my company. I want to store all that employee details like employee ID, employee name, age, salary, all these things. Then you have been asked to create a table to store all these details. Then you will come up with some questions. Okay, so you want to store employee details. So what are all the details? You want to store employee ID, employee name, employee age. First you will figure out what are all the things you want to store. Then for each field, for example, employee ID is one field, employee name is another field, employee salary is another field. So for each field, what is the data type and what is the length? For example, employee ID is there. You want to store employee ID. In your company, how many digits of employee ID you will provide? 10 digits of employee ID or 5 digits of employee ID? Whether the employee ID can be combination of characters and numbers, these things you should know, right? So that is called, every field will have data type and length. Similarly, every field, that means employee name, what could be the data type? Employee name should not have any numbers. Generally names will not have numbers. So data type will be character. Length will be, suppose maybe you can take a maximum length of 30 characters to store employee name. Similarly, employee age. So every field, whatever you want to store, should have certain data type and length. Now we'll go and see in standard SAP how they are providing the data type and length. For example, if you see MATNR, this is the material number. The material number, it has something called a data element. So here, not only material number, you can have a look in every field here has a data element. Of course, here the field name and data element name both are same. Here field name is also MATNR, data element is also MATNR. So here, when I double click on this data element, so I'm in a data element screen, and there is some inside the data element, there is something called a domain. In this domain, I can see the data type and length. So this material number will be of type character, which can store 18 characters. The length is 18. For example, if you want to see the material description, MAKTX. So double click on this MAKTX. This is the data element which has a domain text 40. Double click on this domain. So which has character 40. So that means it can store 40 characters. This particular MAKTX, that means material description, can store 40 characters. So what we are looking in, so every field it has data element. Data element, inside the data element, if we go, there is something called domain. Inside the domain, you have data type and length. For example, my field name is MATNR, then it has a data element here, corresponding data element, that is MATNR itself. Double click, then we are in the data element screen. Inside the data element, we have a domain. Double click, then we have data type and length. So this is how the structure of the table is defined. So now we will see how to create our own table. I want to create a table to store employee details. So what I'll do is I'll create Z. So in SAP, whenever you are creating your objects, always create your objects with Z or Y. because standard SAP by default, whatever comes with SAP, that will start with any other letter, maybe M, maybe U. All these are SAP standard tables. What you can see, these tables are came along with the SAP license. No need to create them again. These are already existing. When you are creating a new one, you have to always do it with a Z or Y. So now I'll create with a Z. So some name, any name you put. So here I'm creating Z Narayan underscore employee. We have to give a table name here, and once you give your table name, click on create button, because this is a new table which you are going to create now. Click on create. You have to give a short description of this table, what you are going to store in this table. So I want to store employee details of my company. Then you have to provide something called a delivery class. There is something here called a delivery class. What is a delivery class? For example, which kind of table you are going to create. Now we are going to create a table. There are different types of tables you can create. In SAP you can create like application table or customizing table, or you can create a table to store a temporary data. Like that, there are different categories of tables you can create in SAP. There are 7 various varieties. We will discuss more details about these varieties of tables later. But generally, in 90% of the cases, whenever you create a table, the table should be an application table which can store master data and transactional data. Customizing tables means these tables will be useful for functional consultants whenever they want to transport or customize the business process. They will use this sort of data. Other tables to store temporary data, and some tables are useful while doing upgradation activities and so on. So now what I'll do is I will select application table. Then there is something here called data browser table view maintenance. You have to select any one of the options. There are 3 options here. SAP has given an option for us to choose any of these 3. If you want to maintain some data in the table, you always select maintenance allowed. Maintain data means what? Actually you have seen in MAKT table, there is some data. Material number 38 is there, for which some description is there. So such data if you want to maintain, display maintenance is allowed. Then what is this? Display maintenance allowed with restrictions. If you put this, still the data you can put in the table, but not from S11 transaction. You can do it via some other business transactions. Like for example, I'll go to MM01 transaction to create a material. Whenever I create a material in that particular transaction, my MAKT table gets updated. In the same way, if you want to do it through some other transactions, you can make use of this display maintenance allowed with restrictions. If you don't want to maintain data, display maintenance not allowed, but I suggest when you create a G tables, go with this display maintenance allowed, so that your data maintenance will be easy. You can do it from here itself. Okay, so now you have to give these 2 options. Then click on this fields. There is something called fields. Click on this fields. So fields are nothing but what are all the details we are going to store. So for example, you want to store employee ID. Okay, so if you want to store employee ID, give some abbreviation, that is what field name, EMPID, employee ID. You have to provide a data element. Remember, your data element should start with a Z. So I will give here Z something. Narayan underscore empid. This is your data element. Once you give here the data element, press enter. So if you are getting here length as a 0, decimal places are 0, then this data element is not available in standard SAP, because standard SAP is a package. It comes with some data elements, some domains, everything is already available in standard SAP. But after you provide some data element here and press enter, then if here the some zeros are there, so if this data element is not there in standard SAP, then double click on this data element. So system is saying this particular table is getting changed. You have given some you have done some changes to this table. Shall I save? Yes, save it. Where to save? There is some option. Generally in Windows we have folders. In the same way in SAP we have packages. If you know the package name, you provide the package name and save it. Click on save button here. If you don't have a folder, you can store it temporarily. Something like in a Windows also, if you don't have a folder, we'll store it in a desktop or so on. In the same way, if you want to store temporary in a temporary folder, you click on this local object. So now you are getting a message. The data element Narayan empid is not available. Shall I create? Yes, we want to create it. Give the description for this data element. So this is for employee ID. There is some tab here called field label. Field label generally provides the headings. Tomorrow if you are using this particular table in some program, yes, you can of course use these tables inside the programs. When you are using these tables in the programs, then what sort of headings you are expected for the particular employee ID? For example, you are displaying employee ID column. For the employee ID column, you may be expecting some heading. What sort of heading you are expected? That is what you can give it in field label. So there are different headings you can provide. Short, for example, if your column length is very short, I want my column heading as employee ID. Medium also okay, and long employee ID. I will say employee identification number. Heading also I will provide whatever I want. So you can give different descriptions as per your requirement. This is completely up to you how you will decide. Press enter. Go to the data type. Go to the data type. Every data element should have a domain, right? So what is our structure? Every field should have a data element. Right now we are in data element. Data element should have a domain. So now in the data element, I'll provide a domain. Your data element name and domain name can be same, can be different. If you say employee ID underscore domain, that means this data element name is different, domain name is different now. You can do it in this way also, but what I will do is I will keep the same name. Double click on this. So SAP is saying, shall I save this data element? The data element has done with some changes. Shall I save the changes whatever we have done for the data element till now? Yes. Where to save? In a local folder. Shall I create a domain? Yes, create it. So we have to give some short description to domain. So this domain is to store employee ID. Employee ID, do you want to give it in a characters or numbers or what? I want to give it in a characters. So click on this button. You have various options here to choose. So employee ID should be character, or if it is a, for example, tomorrow you are creating a field for currency to store some salary. You can choose these options. Tomorrow you want to store some number, you can choose these options, and so on. There are various options you can see. These are all various data types. But employee ID, I want to go with a character. I'll choose a character. And what is the length of employee ID you want? I want 10 characters as the length. Okay, so now save my domain. Where to save? In a local object. Then check the domain and activate the domain. Save, check, activate the domain. So in SAP, if you create a program also, if you create anything, you need to always save it, check it whether you have done some mistakes, some errors, compile it and activate. When you activate, whatever the changes you have done, that will be written to the database. So now I have activated. So this data element, this domain got activated. So now where are we? So actually first we started with a field and then we have created a data element. We have created a domain. Now what we are doing, we are saving, checking, activating this domain. Okay. So now let it activate the domain. So now you can see the status. This domain is activated. So this domain is activated. Now when I click on a back button, I will come to data element because right now I'm in a domain. How I came to this domain? From the data element. When I double click on the domain, I came to here. So now I'm in a domain screen. When I click on a back button, I'll go to the data element screen. See. Okay. So now save your data element, check your data element for any errors and activate your data element. So now what we are doing, we are trying to activate data element. So now the data element is active. You can see the status here. It is active. Now come back. When you come back, you can see the field. Okay, so I'll come back. See the field. Field is employee ID. Data element is ZNRN EMP You can see it is a data type is character, length is 10, short description is employee ID over here. So everything looks fine. Then I want to store another field, employee name. For that I'll give a same procedure again. For example, for the first field, if you are not able to understand what is how to create data element and domain, now you concentrate. The same procedure I'm repeating. Give some data element over here. ZNRN underscore EMP name, for example. This is the data element. Double click on this. Save the table. This is some message is coming. We will discuss this later. What is this message? So SAP is saying the data element employee name is not available. Shall I create? Yes. So now from the field level, from the field employee name level, we are came into the data element level. Try to understand the flow. So now we are in the data element screen. So give here the description employee name. Always maintain headings in the field label. So here short heading EMP name, medium employee name, long heading you want to put something, then yes, of course, put it whatever the headings you want. This is for later use. As of now you can't see much difference of maintaining this field labels. Go to the data type. Here you have to provide the domain. You can provide the same name or different name. I'll provide the same name. Double click on this domain. Now what we are doing, we are trying to go from data element to domain. Okay, so double click on this domain and save the changes. Save your data element in a local folder, temporary folder. The domain SAP is saying this particular domain is not available. Shall I create? Yes, create it. Then give some short description for this domain. This is for employee name. Employee name should be of what? Character or integer or numeric? It should be character. Choose character. Length. How much length of employee ID you want to store? 20 characters. And give it 20. Save it. So what you have saved? You have saved the domain. Remember, when you are in a domain screen, if you are saving means you are saving the domain. You are checking the domain and you are activating the domain. So once you activate the domain, come back, save, check, activate your data element. Okay, so my domain activation is done. Here it is active. Come back. Now we are in the data element. Save, check, activate your data element and come back. So repeat the same process for n number of fields. In this table you may be having 100 fields, something like employee name. Maybe tomorrow you have employee age, employee salary. You have 100 fields. You have to repeat the same thing for the same procedure for all the fields. So I will do two more fields. Employee age I want to store. So for example here I will see ZEMP age. I will give here. Press enter. EMP Z EMP age, or I want to make use of Z Narayan underscore EMP age. I'll follow the same naming convention for all. And double click on this employee. So I will go little fast now because you know the procedure. Data element. This is for employee age. So field labels. We have to provide a field label for this. And data type. Copy the data element and put it over here. Double click on this domain. Save it in a temporary folder. Now create the domain. Employee age should be character or number or what? It should be numeric field. I'll select a numeric field. So employee will retire in 60 years mostly, otherwise below 99 years. So I'll put 2 digits for employee age. Activate. First what you need to do? Save, check and activate domain. Come back, save, check, activate data element. One more field. So sometimes what will happen is in your interviews you will get a question. So do you need to always create a field with the help of data element and domain? So for example, if you are creating a field, then that means is this data element and domain are mandatory? You can create a field without data element also, or you can create a data element without domain also. That is also possible. How it is? For example, I'm giving employee salary. I don't want to create a data element for this. Okay, so I don't want to create a data element for this. Then employee salary should have what data type and length, how much length it should have, how you can come to know. What you need to do is you need to click on this predefined type. There is a button here, predefined type. Click on this predefined type. Then here itself you can enter the data type and length. So that means because it is a salary or it's a numeric value. So I will enter the numeric number here. So maybe I will enter integer 4. So integers will take the length automatically. When I press enter, the length is coming by default is 10. A short description is employee salary. So like this I can do it without creating a data element. I can still create a field. Okay, and similarly, but the way what we have done, it is not recommended. So always it is recommended create a field and create a data element, create a domain. So this is a traditional way. Do it in this way only, because if you create directly, there are some uh, disadvantages. We'll discuss those disadvantages later point of time. So don't do this. So for example now, but there is an option in interview. You will get a question. Can we do it? Yes, we can do it. If you want to provide a data element, yes, we have an option always. So that is Z Naren underscore EMP salary data element. Double click on this. Create headings. Put headings. So now this is a data element. So now again in your interview you will get a question. Can you create a data element without creating a domain? Without domain, can you create a data element? Yes, you can create. How? There is a radio button here called predefined again. So click here, choose your data type. Data type for salary, again choose this integer, press enter. Then you can see it has a data type and length. Integer for this data element has data type and length, but it doesn't have a domain. It is possible to do like this, but it is not recommended. So always create a domain and do it. Employee salary. So here you provide the integer, and this is the best way to create a data element, domain, and so on. So my domain activated. Save check, activate the domain. Come back. Save check, activate the data element. Come back. So like this, you have to create the fields. So once you have done with the fields, you have to do some technical settings here. So click on this technical settings. If you remember previously, we have given two things here. Delivery class is A. A means what? Whether it is an application table or whether it is a transaction like application table or customizing table or table to store temporary data, which kind of table it is. Now in the technical settings, we are going to say what type of data we are storing. See, basically when we say application table, this table can be capable of storing master data and transactional data. So what type of data among master data and transactional data, what you are storing, that you need to specify in technical settings. Now my question is, what is master data? What is transactional data? So some functional consultants are already there in this group. They might have already aware of master data and transactional data. Can anybody tell me what is master data and transactional data? I'm trying to unmute all. So somebody muted themselves. They may unmute and just can somebody help us defining what is the master data and transactional data?
Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello.
Ankit, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm able to hear.
Okay. Yeah, you were asking about master data and transaction data, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so master data is basically that's fixed data that cannot be changed dynamically, but transaction data, what we use like for the daily use, like creating sales order, delivery, and all those things. So that's called transaction data.
Super.
And master
Exactly.
data is like, yeah.
Exactly. So what master data is? Master data is created once and rarely it is getting updated. Transactional data is frequently getting updated. Say for example, you went to a bank to open an account. So your account details, your name, your user ID, your password, all these things are master data, which are your account number or your name, and those things will be changed rarely. But transactional details means, say for example, by using this account, you are doing some transactional, you are doing some fund transfer, or you are recharging a prepaid mobile. So all these are transactional. So these transactional details will be changed frequently. So that is the difference between master data and transactional data. And one more important point I would like to say here is transactional data is always dependent on master data, but master data will not depend on transactional data. For example, take the same example. I want to recharge a prepaid mobile to my bank account. Then I should have a bank account. So my prepaid mobile recharge is depending on my bank account. But when I create a bank account, when I go to a bank to create an account, so it doesn't seem I'm something depending on my prepaid mobile recharge. It doesn't make any sense. So whatever data which is depending on other data, so that is the transactional data, and independent data is the master data. And there is something called customizing data. Customizing data is for organization. For example, when you purchase a license of SAP, it is something like a new SAP which is not belongs to any particular company. You have to provide your company details into SAP. Something like when you purchase a mobile, what I'm saying, you have a mobile apps. For example, you got a Gmail app in your mobile. You have to provide your username and password. Then only your particular emails will appear in your mobile. In the same way, you have to customize you have to provide your organization related details, and you have to configure SAP for your organization. In that case, you may be using this APPL2 and so on. There are so many other categories. But most of the times we'll go with APPL0, that is master data. And there is something here called size category. Size category means what? When I create a table here, so in the back end, how much memory should be allocated? For how many records the memory should be allocated in the back end? In this table, are we going to store 1000 records or 50,000 records or 1 lakh? How many records we are going to store? Approximately we have to give information. Based on that, the backend memory will be allocated for this table. So I suggest always estimate more optimally, so that database utilization will be optimized and the performance will be fast. For example, if you want to store only 10 records, then click on the size category and choose the minimum interval 0 to 9,000 records. If you want to store, always select size category 0. But if you want to store 2 lakh records, then I suggest to give this, okay, and so on. So you have to choose the best option here. Based on this, the performance depends. Say for example, if you want to store only 10 records, but if you have chosen some 2 lakh records, so for 2 lakhs records it will allocate a memory, and the performance will go down for others. So choose a minimum interval always. Now save it, come back, go to the fields. So in your table, now almost we have done everything except a few more points. Those are nothing but something like called key field, something called key field. In all the fields, what is a unique field by which I can identify an employee uniquely? For example, assume there is a big function going on and all employees are available. I want to call only one employee onto the stage. So what is the unique way of calling an employee? For example, if I call with the name, with the same name there may be 2 employees. If I call with the A's, there may be several. If I say salary, there may be several employees having the same. So the unique feature is nothing but employee ID. So make it as a key field for your table. So the table will remember the employee record with the help of employee ID. So this is a unique field that is called as key field. So select this checkbox, save it. There is something called extras enhancement category. For the timing, enhancement category means I'll say tomorrow are you going to add some more fields in this table? Are you going to enhance this table? Tomorrow employee mobile number you want to store in this table. Are you going to do that? If you want to do that, you can say can be enhanced. If you don't want to do, you can say cannot be enhanced. You choose any one of the option, it's not a problem. Later point of time also you can come here and change. For example, today you said cannot be enhanced. Tomorrow you want to add some more field. You can come here and change it, not a problem. Click on copy, save. Now check your table. Remember guys, until now I have not checked the table. I was checking inside the data element, I am checking inside the domain, I am clicking on checking button, but until now I have not clicked on the check button. So now I am clicking on this check. So you can see no inconsistencies found in the bottom. That means everything is going fine. Activate your table. When I activate this table, see if you observe this, there is an icon here which is in gray mode. Once my table is activated, this icon which is in gray mode will be available for clicking. Something like other icons. See this icon, observe this icon, which this icon is for displaying the table data. So now this icon is enabled, table content icon is enabled. So now I click on this table contents. As of now this table doesn't have any data. As of now when I click on execute, this table doesn't have any data inside. I want to store some data. How to store? If you want to store data in a table, go to utilities, table contents, create entries. Give some employee ID, EMP01, employee name, some name, employee age, employee salary. Provide all these details, click on the save button. So in the table what you have created, in that particular database table, all these details are stored. Now you want to provide another employee details. Click on this reset button. Provide another name. Provide some age. Provide some salary. Save it. So there are two employee details are saved. Now, for example, for the same employee ID, I will say some other name, then some other age, some salary. But employee ID is a previous employee ID. So now when I save it, see what it is saying. If you see the message in the bottom, it is saying data record with the specified key already exists. That means it is saying boss employee ID 02 is already there. It is allocated for some other person. The employee ID 02 you cannot allocate for this guy Hari. You have to provide some other employee ID to this. So provide some other employee ID and save it. Then the data will be stored. So that is what the key, that is what the unique identification. Employee ID is unique identification. That's what we have marked it. So we have saved some records, some data in the table. So now what you have to do, I'll go to SE11 transaction, give the table name, display, click on this contents. Now execute. You are getting the employee data what we have just stored. Okay. If you don't want to see all the three records, you want to see only the record of employee 01, then provide here employee 01. This is a selection screen kind of thing. If you provide employee 01, here you can see only that particular record. Or if you want to see employee age wise, for example, whose age is 27, only that particular employee should be there. Then only age 27 related employees are coming. 26 means there are two employees, only one. Okay. What about the other person is we have given 28, 26, 27, 28. Okay. Sorry. Otherwise, if you want to check with the salary 50,000, there are two employees with salary 50,000 and so on. You can perform various filtering options from this screen and look into the data. So now, what is a table? A table is a combination of table structure, table data. That is what we discussed in the beginning. Table structure means all these fields. That is what table structure. Table data means the actual data what you have stored. That is table data. So now to summarize, every field has a data element. Inside the data element, you have a domain. Domain has a data type and length. This is what you need to remember while creating a table yourself. So today we have created an employee table, and please practice, create your own table. For example, you can create a student table where you can store multiple fields like student ID, student name, student class, in which class he is. Like create your own, try to create your own tables to practice this. Yeah, so if you practice once or twice, the procedure will become very easy, because the same procedure, it is repetitive when you create a data element and domain. Just a little practice is required. So, any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll close for today. You have any questions? Please.
Hi Ram.
Yeah.
Hi Ram. How do we know the three different data elements? I mean, do we need to go to the drop down and check it?
Okay, so you want to see what are all the data elements which SAP has already given to us. Otherwise, somebody has already created.
Yes.
And what you can do is, in the search help, there is a search help here. For example, tomorrow what you are doing, you are entering here employee address. Okay. For this, you want a data element. But you don't want to create a new data element. You want to search whether some SAP standard data element is there for address. What you need to do is click on this button F4. This is called a help button, search help button. Click on this. Now you have an option to search. You want a heading as address, then provide address here and click on continue. So now SAP will look what are all the data elements which are having heading as address. Let us see if it is there. See, there are so many data elements. Some data elements are starting with a slash. Some data elements are starting with a A. Okay. So there are so many. All these are standard data elements which are used to store the address, which are having address as the description. But how much length you want for the address field, and what should be your data type, whether you want to make it as a character or whether you want to make it as a string or whether you want it to be integer. There are different types of data elements SAP has. If you want a length 80, choose this. If you want length 3, choose this. You can choose any one of this. For example, I'll choose this character 10 and press enter. When you press enter, here the length and short description automatically coming, and this is SAP has already given this data element because SAP is a package. Some data elements already available. You can make use of that. Now save, activate your table. No need to double click, create and all. So it's already available. When you double click, if you see, this is standard data element. Inside that, domain will be there definitely, and then data type, length, everything will be there because it was given by SAP. No need to do it. All this. Just save, activate your table. Any other question, guys? So yesterday's video I have already uploaded. Maybe after this class immediately I will send the link of yesterday's recorded session. You can go through the recorded session. Today we will stop here, and tomorrow we will continue with some more activities on data dictionary.